Most of us kind of get the idea of voting, but the actual journey from your single ballot to a national leader, well, that can look radically different depending on where you are in the world. So while tons of nations vote, the path to power is anything but one size fits all.
Seriously, think about it for a second. You go into a booth, you mark a box, you cast your vote. But what happens after that? How does your one action, when multiplied by millions of others, actually result in someone running the entire country? Well, that's what we're going to dig into. Let's follow that single vote and see exactly where it leads.
So here's the game plan. We're going to start with the absolute marathon that is the US presidential race. Then we'll hop across the pond to look at the UK's parliamentary path. After that, we'll dive into the rules of the game for both, check out the power and the problems with political parties, and then, just to put it all in perspective, we'll take a look at a completely different system, China.
All right, first up, the United States. And let me tell you, choosing a president here is not a sprint. It is a long, grueling, multi-stage marathon that seems to go on forever.
The whole thing really works like a giant funnel. It starts out super wide with the primaries and caucuses. That's where the political parties basically let their members pick their favorite candidate from a whole field of contenders. Then that choice gets officially locked in at these big, flashy national conventions. After that, we get to the main event, the general election. But believe it or not, even that isn't the final step. The last, and let's be honest, often the most confusing part, is the Electoral College vote. Okay, so this is where it gets a little tricky for a lot of people. When you cast your ballot in the US presidential election, you're not actually voting directly for the president. No, you're voting for a group of people called electors, and these electors have pledged to vote for a specific candidate. Each state gets a certain number of these electors, and it's all based on its population. And it all comes down to this one number, the magic number, 270. Out of 538 total electoral votes available across the country, a candidate has to get to 270 to win the White House. It's not about winning the most individual votes nationwide. It's about winning the right combination of states to hit that magic number. Okay, so if the US system is a race to pick one person, the UK's approach is a whole different ballgame. Over there, the focus isn't just on choosing a leader. It's about choosing an entire government. Now, this is absolutely key. In the UK, you don't vote for the Prime Minister. Instead, you vote for a local representative for your specific area, known as a Member of Parliament, or an MP. The whole country is carved up into 650 of these little areas. The political party that manages to win a majority of these seats, that's 326 or more, gets to form the government, and the leader of that winning party, they automatically become the Prime Minister. But what happens if nobody wins? What if the results are so close that no single party gets that clear majority? Well, that's when you get what's called a hung parliament, and that's when the real horse trading begins. Usually, the biggest party will try to team up with smaller parties to form a coalition, just to stitch together enough seats to run the country. So you've got two super close allies with two totally different ways of getting to the top job. It really all comes down to the rules of the game and what your one single vote actually means in each country. Let's boil it down to the absolute core difference for you, the voter. In the US, your vote is for a slate of electors who are tied to a national candidate for president. In the UK, your vote is for a specific person, someone you want to represent your local town or neighborhood in parliament. It's a national choice versus a very local one. But, for all their differences, there is one big thing they have in common for their legislative elections. It's a system called first past the post. And it's pretty simple, really. It's winner take all. In any given district or constituency, the candidate who gets just one more vote than anybody else wins. That's it. You don't need a majority, just the most votes. Now, of course, these systems don't just run on autopilot. They're fueled by political parties. And that adds a whole other layer of complexity. And, yeah, a few problems. Because as we're about to see, no system is perfect, not by a long shot. In both countries, you can really think of political parties as the engines that make everything go. They're the ones picking the candidates, writing the platforms, getting people excited to vote, and raising all that cash you hear about. But each system has its own big headache. The major complaint you hear in the US is that because of the Electoral College, a candidate can actually become president even if they lose the national popular vote. It's happened.
Meanwhile, in the UK, the first-past-the-post system gets a lot of heat for creating wasted votes, where a party can get, say, 15% of the votes nationwide but end up with only a tiny fraction of the seats in parliament.
Okay, so we've looked at two different democratic models. Now, for some real perspective, let's zoom out and look at a system that plays by a completely different set of rules altogether: China, and its fundamentally different approach to power.
Right. The first thing you absolutely have to understand is that China is a one-party state. All political power, and I mean all of it, is held by the Communist Party of China, the CPC.
So how does someone become the leader? Well, on paper, the highest authority is the National People's Congress, and they elect the president. But in reality, the Communist Party has total control over who gets nominated. And in 2018, there was a huge change. The Constitution was amended to completely remove the two-term limit for the presidency.
And you can see the history of this process right here, from Mao Zedong all the way to Xi Jinping today. The leadership has changed hands over the decades, but it's always been within the firm grip of that single-party system. So what's the big takeaway from all this? It's that the rules of the game are never just boring technical details. They matter a lot. As the saying goes, the electoral system shapes the politics, the leaders, and the policies that affect everyone.
And that really leaves us with a final and pretty tough question. If every system has its flaws and involves some kind of trade-off, what do we value most? Is it the mathematical fairness of making sure every single vote counts equally? Or is it the political stability that a strong system can sometimes provide? Or maybe it's that direct local connection that comes from electing your own neighborhood representative. It's a fundamental question, and one that every democracy has to grapple with for itself.